Do you follow Jesus as a king or as a consultant? Let me tell you what I mean by that. I think a lot of times in our lives, we incidentally follow Jesus as a consultant instead of a king. We see through Scripture that Jesus is the authoritative king, but instead we settle for viewing him as a consultant, somebody we go to for help, for advice when things are tough. But I think through Scripture we clearly see that Jesus is the authoritative king that should have dominion and authority over all of our lives. And we see that in our passage today in Luke chapter 20, verses 1 to 8. Will you read it with me? One day, as Jesus was teaching the people in the temple and preaching the gospel, the chief priests and the scribes with the elders came and said to him, "Tell us by what authority you do these things, or who is it that gave you this authority?" He answered them and said, "I will ask you a question. Now tell me, was the baptism of John from heaven or from man?" And they discussed it with one another, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Why did you not believe him?' But if we say from man, all the people will stone us to death, for they are convinced that John was a prophet." So they answered that they did not know where it came from. And Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." And in this passage, I think we see the scribes, the elders, coming before Jesus with this question, not of theology, not of doctrine, but of control. We see throughout the Gospels that Jesus challenged their already set structures and programs and organization. Ultimately, he was bringing a new and better way of connecting and relating with God. But at the time, they're uncomfortable and in this tension where they feel threatened and unable to give up control. Their question of authority is not really about authority, but about the fact that they want to be in control. And I think this desire for control is not unique to these people at this time in Scripture, but I see it present in my life and in those around me. Not only now, but even as a kid, there's a story that my family likes to remind me of jokingly, that my parents would give me the junk mail to sort, but I think basically to keep me busy for a few minutes as a 3 or 4-year-old. And one day I came out of my bedroom with a piece of junk mail. And it was a letter, an advertisement, but I was convinced that I went to my parents and said, "This is a letter from God, and it says that I am in charge now." What in the world was I thinking as a 3 or 4-year-old? I was thinking that I wanted control. Now, thankfully, my parents corrected that very quickly and let me know the truth that that was not a letter from God. I'm also thankful I was 3 or 4 years old and did not start a cult with that insight. But I think it reminds me of something deep down inside of us that wants to have control. And I'd be challenged by this same idea that if we give up control to God, he is usually doing something bigger and better than we could ever imagine. So as we reflect at this point in Holy Week, I would ask you, what are you holding on to control of? Is that a hurt? Is it a habit? Is it a hang-up? Is it something that you know needs to change, but you refuse to let Jesus be the authoritative king in your life? I'd encourage you today to think about what that is, what you're holding on to give up control and see how God will move and work in your heart and in your life. Jesus is a much better authoritative king than simply a consultant.